Hi, everyone. This is John Landers at T-Bames, originally the Big Apple Indie Music Series, now known as the Best Artist Indie Music Series. I have here with Connecting Through Music, Artie Tobia. He's a singer-songwriter out of, I believe, New York. And he performed for us back in December of 2013 at Tobacco Road. And Artie, thanks for taking the time to join me today.
Well, always happy to be here, John, to support what you're doing.
I appreciate that. So the first question I will have is, what was your impression, experience with performing at our showcase back then?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, what I appreciated, I think, the most was that you, in my opinion, you went out of your way to make the artists feel like artists, and provided us with a venue, provided us with, you know, the back line that was, I guess, through the venue. We had interviews going on. We had the backdrop that we were interviewed in front of. There were photo ops. So I think it was it was a fun night all around. And nice to be a part of that community that night.
Were we able to connect you with anybody that evening for in the
Yeah,
industry?
so there were people that approached me. I met some other people there, and some of them, we danced a little bit. We followed up with one another, and but transparently, nothing of no great outcome from any of it as far as maintaining any of those relationships, but certainly some dialogue around joint and collaboration, joint ventures and collaboration,
Mhm.
and it was a worthwhile networking. It was worthwhile from a networking standpoint.
Okay,
Um, yeah, so it was beneficial, absolutely, from a networking standpoint.
very good. So now about your singing songwriting, when did you first realize that music was your calling? When you got interested into it?
It's funny. I was just telling my wife, I got the words in my head of a song that I wrote in history class this morning, probably in like the fifth or sixth grade, and around that same time, uh, I used to go visit a friend of mine, and to get to his house, I'd kind of sneak out of the back of my property across the parking lot of like the school church that my house was next to, and then that led up to a field behind there. And then I cut through that field, and I would go to my friend's house out onto his street. He lived on a dead end, and the dead end met up with that field. The very first song I wrote, I hear the birds, I hear the birds singing, I hear the birds tweeting, I hear the birds, I see the birds flying over my head. And that's the first lyric that I can remember writing, and that would have been,
Hmm.
again, 12, something like that, 11, 12 years old. I remember writing that, and I can remember an earlier experience in like the first grade where the music teacher played some song, and myself and another kid. Oh, it was Elton John. It was da 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 da. I remember when Rock was young, me and Susie, that song. Me and
Oh, Rocket
Susie.
Man,
What was it?
Rocket Man.
No, 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 not Rocket Man. No, it was the other one. He just has so much on his hands and
Oh,
kicking stones. Old gold Chevy in a place of my own, but the biggest kick we ever got. Crocodile Rock.
Crocodile
Crocodile
Rock.
Rock.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It was
Okay.
Crocodile Rock. And so me and this other kid jumped up, probably without permission, and got in front of the class, and we sang and made sounds along with the songs or whatever. And I remember going back to my seat, and the kid said, "You should be a musician." And I said, "I can't. I don't know how to play an instrument." And I very clearly remember that experience. And so that and the birds flying over my head song, walking across the field. Um, I think I knew then, but I didn't know then. You know what I mean? Like, I think I knew, but I didn't really know. And then fast forward, a few years, 3, 4 years later, was when I think I started writing songs as something I did for myself. So 15, 14, 15, 16, probably 15, 16 more likely.
And then is that
But-
when you actually picked up a guitar then, or is that?
So I got my first guitar when I was 16. My parents gave it to me as a Christmas gift. My mother went with a good friend of mine who went with her to a pawn shop, and uh, she bought me an acoustic Ibanez, and it is, I think, oh no, where is it? Shoot, I think it's upstairs. I thought it was right here. No, I think it must be upstairs.
Okay.
I got an empty case there. But yeah, she bought me this acoustic Ibanez, and I played that for a long time. So I got that when I was 16, but I did not learn to really play it. I fiddled with it, but I didn't really learn to play it until a number of years later, probably in my 20s, because I ended up being the front man for a band, and I never played because I had two really good guitar players. It just seemed unnecessary to me. I foolishly should have taken advantage of their skill set and learned to play better, but I did not until some years later. I started doing acoustic, playing like acoustic duo, and that was when I started playing more. And I was awful. I wouldn't have hired me, but I did get hired, and it was really awkward for me because I really fought my way through chords and such. But yeah, so I got it when I was 16. Didn't really learn to play it until I was probably more into my 20s.
Wow. So who are your influences in music?
Well, it's funny. I was just on the phone with a buddy of mine, a singer-songwriter. He's going to be doing a Tom Waits tribute show in February. And he's like, have you ever thought about doing something? I said, yeah, it's funny. I said, you're going to laugh at who I would want to do that for. I said, but I'd love to do like a John Denver tribute song, a tribute night, just play all John Denver. So it's a funny question. Vocally, B.B. King, Greg Allman, Joe Cocker, all real influential. Bob Seger, probably. Guitar wise, I love Steve Ray Vaughan's guitar probably more than anybody else's. Buddy Guy, and B.B. King, of course, still falls back into that. Lyrically, though I would never cite them as an influence so much, when I do hear John Denver, when I do hear the Beach Boys, I realize they may have been my attraction to songwriting, though I don't think I stylistically write like either one of them per se. I think there was just something in their songs that I found romantic, that I found heartwarming, that I found grounded.
Very melodic.
What's that?
Melodic. Their music is very melodic, to my mind.
Yeah, and so and then then there's Elvis. I mean, I'm a huge Elvis fan. I always have been since I'm a little boy. I mean, I can remember being 5 or 6 and seeing Elvis on TV and being like, I gotta watch this guy, but no crystallizing moment where I go, I watched him and that's when I knew. I never experienced that per se. But yeah, so pretty wide range. Allman Brothers, Skinner. I love the Texas songwriter guys. Guy Clark, Towns Van Zandt, Robert Earl Keen, Lyle Lovett. Yeah, there's so many. I really. That's why I'm an Americana artist, because I can just as easily be drawn to something that's more folk oriented as something that's hardcore blues, as something that's rock, and even country. I mean, country stuff. Merle Haggard, Johnny Cash, all those guys, old country guys. Every once in a while, you get some of these new country guys. You go, that's pretty good. Everybody loves Chris Stapleton. I love his voice. I love the way he records his voice. Zach Brown's another newer guy that I like. I recently saw Darius Rucker last summer at a country concert. That is the happiest performer I've ever seen in my life. That guy. Yeah. He's just so happy when he's on stage. And I like him. I like his voice. I like, so I range from old school folks to some newer people that I definitely go. I'm kind of paying attention to them, So
Okay.
variation.
So these past 10 years, what kind of challenges have you found in getting your gaze and your music out there? What challenges are you experiencing in today's environment? If
Yeah,
any?
I mean, I think the good news is um it's fairly easy today to record a song and get it released and get it on Spotify and Apple Music. And I think the challenges today is that it's pretty easy today to get a song recorded and released on Spotify and Apple Music
Yeah,
because it just creates you know, there's so much out there. Um and it's I don't even want to say it's competitive. It's just noisy, I think.
yeah,
Um,
I have to agree with
and
that.
yeah, and I think so. Honestly, for me, I don't pay a whole lot of attention to Spotify and Apple Music and TikTok and all that stuff. It's not a space and place and time that I'm willing to give up and be in.
Yes,
Um,
I'm with you
I
100% on that myself.
Yeah, so I mean, I think maybe to my own detriment. To answer the question, the 10 years and the challenge, so in the last 10 years, I've released, well, going back to 2001. So 2001, 2009, 2018. So since 18 till now, 16 till now, I've released three more albums. So I've released five albums. My last two had some modest charting success. Um, so to some degree, like, yeah, the challenges are out there, but this is why I say I don't really pay attention to the Spotify's and the Apple Music aspect of it. My music gets out there. Uh, I get a
So,
little modest little royalty check every quarter.
so
Yeah.
social sites do you feel work best for you getting your music heard?
Work best for me or that I use. I'm on Facebook still, and though I find their algorithms extremely frustrating.
Yes.
Uh, and I so primarily Facebook and Instagram for me. I've kind of abandoned Twitter, uh,
Yeah, me
just
too.
for no reason other than I just figure two is enough. Like you find me on one of those things. I'm easily if you put my name into a search, you get like 10 pages of me.
Yeah.
Um, so I again, and I wonder to my detriment or not. I'm not sure. Um, but as I say, if you put Artie Tobia in a search on Google or Safari, I come up pretty strongly. I have a pretty strong presence
Yes.
on there, and I've had the opportunity to do some work with some different people in the business, and one of them says to me all the time, they're constant. One of their mantras is, "There's nobody out there that's obligated to find your music. It's your job to help them discover it." And
Right.
so I try and do that. I try and put my stuff out there, whether it's on a reel or it's um, on a posting. Trying to work around the algorithm. But I'm pretty organic. I'm pretty grassroots. My audience could be bigger. I think that's another challenge. Is I wish my audience was bigger than it is because I do know that the audience that I have. Um, I did a show Wednesday night. We got called out for an encore, which was humbling and surprising to some degree. But they wanted it, and they wanted a song in particular, which was also kind of
Nice.
nice.
That's awesome.
And when you see people singing along to something you've written, yeah, I'm not sure it gets much better than that,
Yeah,
And
right.
and so I get a lot of validation when I'm out there, but uh, again, I'd love to have a bigger audience. I'd love to have
Do
more
you,
people aware of me. And, I've been very fortunate in that same 10-year bracket, going back to 2016. up to present, I've had the opportunity to open for a whole lot of in some cases, household names,
Okay.
and that's been great, you know. So
Have
there's
you,
challenges, but I'm an optimist. So you can the glass could be only
half
have
empty?
half of it in there, and it could be thrown on the floor and shattered. I'd still say it's a full glass.
So let me
So,
ask, do you promote any of your music gigs on bandsintown.com?
mhm.
Because that's a good place to
I'm
get more
sorry,
exposure.
I forgot Bands in Town. Yeah, so I ran into a little trouble with Bands in Town recently because I was having trouble accessing it. And
Hmm.
I see everybody I know in my geographic area and otherwise, bands in town, bands in town, bands in town. Artists that I follow, people that are, I would say, are friends of mine.
Hmm.
And I was like, man, I'm really missing the boat here. And then I do like to listen to like podcasts, music podcasts, and different things like that. And a fellow who I think is somebody, Bandzoogle just got purchased by not Bandzoogle. Oh no, maybe it is Bandzoogle. Maybe Bandzoogle and Bands in Town.
Reverb Nation was purchased by somebody.
Yeah,
If you,
well, Bands in Town was purchased and combined with somebody. I think it's Bandzoogle and Bands in Town. I'm not sure. I forget who it is. But somebody from Bands in Town was on, and they were talking about all these things you can do in Bands in Town. I was like, really? I like use it to say I have a show coming up, but there's all these other things you can do in it, which I was unaware of. So that piqued my interest. I went to go get in. I couldn't get in. I was having trouble. It was very frustrating. Um, and then I reached out to them, went to their help, their help
support?
center,
Yeah.
and they were fantastic, and they cleared up for me what my issue was, and they made some changes that I was unaware of, so that was on me. And so I've been a lot better now about using it. As a matter of fact, you reminded me I'm doing a show tomorrow night. No, see, I'm a day off still. I'm not doing a show tomorrow night. Today's Wednesday.
Yeah.
Friday. I'm doing a show Friday night. And you're just reminding me I need to put a little notification out through Bands in Town to my followers on there. So yeah, Bands in Town. So I and it's funny because I really got to get that in my head. Facebook, Instagram, Bands in Town. That's going to be my three primary, social
Yeah.
media, internet ways of getting in touch. And then of course the king is still, direct to fan through email. So I have a pretty healthy email list that I use for my shows and stuff that goes right to people without a middleman, without an algorithm, like that.
So to be clear, then I assume that you do all your own booking. You don't have a manager, a booking agent. You do everything
So
yourself.
I've been working with somebody for about 10 years, and we kind of laugh. At times she's my booker, at times she's my agent, at times she's my publicist, at times she's my pain in my behind. And but we have a good relationship, and so um, she has other priorities sometimes that are competing, and so she's more or less involved at different times. But
Mm.
so I primarily do most of the stuff. I'm a typical independent artist. I'm my own writer, my own engineer, I'm my own light guy, I'm my own sound man, I'm my own performer, I'm my band leader. I do solo, duo, and full band. And so it's a yeah. I'm pretty independent that way, and that I do most everything by myself. But I do have some folks that help me here and there along the way with different things.
So let me ask you this: what would you tell a new artist that is looking to pursue a music career in today's environment? How would you advise them?
Um, it's never ending. It's lonely. It's challenging. I tell people all the time. I'm told no 95% of the time, so I'm living for the 5%. That half of that is okay, and the other half, the other 2.5%, is better than okay, and maybe 1% of that 2.5% remaining is great. So you're really living for that 1%.
Hmm.
It's but again, I was just having a conversation with a buddy of mine, and we were just talking about we've both been doing this for a long time, and we are both professional artists and we get paid for what we do. Um, that being said, it's never really been about the money. It's about a passion. It's about something we can't really live without. And so, you know, I do some acting as well. And I had an acting instructor who once said, if you could do anything else in life and be happy and not miss the acting, then acting isn't for you. And I kind of feel the same way musically. It just depends on what you want to do. Like I was just speaking with somebody recently who, you know, sings and wants to get into maybe doing some stuff with music. And I told them a lot of what I just said to you, but it depends on what they're looking to do. If they want to be in the music business as an independent artist, an original artist, that's very different than going out and saying, I just want to go play music and do cover tunes and be in a cover band and play occasionally, you know, on the weekends. So it would depend on what they're looking to do. You know, would be there'd be some variations and a few depends. You know, it depends. It depends. If you're doing this, then go this route. If you're want to do this, then go this route. I always describe myself as a working musician, and so to me, that means I go ahead and I take on work, essentially as a working musician. I don't have a starving artist mentality. And if there's one thing I'd say is, please don't go into this with a starving artist mentality. You're not going to be appreciated or hired more because you don't want to be paid or you expect to be. You know, you need to go into situations and get your worth. And whether that's doing a session in a studio or that's, you know, writing songs for film and television or performing live, whatever it is, you can be a working musician and generate income. You know, there's different revenue streams that you can focus on. And I try and take advantage of a few different ones, some with more success than others. But it really depends on what you're looking to do. If you just want to play music kind of as a hobby and as a side thing, that's different than I want to be an independent artist. I want to record 5 albums and release them and get them on the radio charts. I'm willing to lay out that money, or am I willing to ask people for that money through a fund me page or whatever it is, which is also a space you have to be comfortable saying, hey, can you help me finance my dream?
Yeah.
I mean, that's, you know, and some people are great with that. I've never done it that way myself. I've always just put the money away and I pay for my own projects. And you know, they're on average, probably, you know, the first few were 15 grand or so, maybe a little bit more. The last few were probably more like 10 grand because there's just technology makes things a little bit easier, faster, but there's an investment. You have to invest in yourself as a business and a product if you're doing it professionally to be an independent artist. If you're just doing it to go play cover tunes and play on the weekends, that's a different part of the music business. And the distinction being the music business, that's what I'm in. That's what most independent artists are in. You know, we lead the music industry to Bruce Springsteen and Taylor Swift and, you know, whoever the other big stars are of the day. They're in the music industry. I'm not in the music industry. I'm in the music business. And the music business means, you know, a continuum from here to here. And you know, this might be top of the music industry, music business that I'm in, and this might be the bottom, and that might be a little tiny solo gig in a cafe where you're playing to 3 people, and this might be a 700 or 800 seat venue where I'm putting on a 3-hour show of my own music at a ticketed event. You know, I was pretty pleased the other night. My son, man, my kids can be my toughest critics along with my wife, and I did a show last week, and 2 comments came out. Somebody came to see me, and their comment was, I didn't realize you put on such a production, which I kind of, that was nice to hear, you know, that they felt it was at that level. And then my one son said to me, he goes, I think this is the first time I've ever seen you in concert. This had a concert feel to it tonight. I was like, oh, that's pretty nice. You know, cool. So like I say, from you know, one extreme to the other, there's a whole lot of places to work within that, you know. So
sounds good.
But I encourage anybody that wants to get into it, just get into it and know it's a long road and a lonely road and a tough road, and it's not going to be easy. Just remain committed. And I just read Henry Winkler has a great quote. He says, I've stuck in this business after being the Fonz there was a little bit of a dark time, but he says, what I learned is that you stay at the table long enough, there's nobody else sitting there anymore. And they bring everything to you because there's
Yeah.
nobody else to give it to. And so I think longevity is a part of it as well.
Okay. So before we finish this up, just let me know, tell me, our viewers know, what are you working on today, and what else would you like to share with everyone watching today before we close it?
Well, I was hoping to have 2 records done before this, but I got two albums I'm going to be working on. One is going to be kind of a solo acoustic, just me and my guitar type of thing. I might add some light instrumentation into it, but essentially just me and my guitar. Songs that I've written. I don't get a lot of writer's block, to be honest with you. And so I've already released 60 songs on my first 5 albums, 61 if I did a Christmas single. But I probably have another 50 or 60 songs that I haven't released, and I don't know what I'll write in the coming months. Sometimes I write 9 songs in 3 days. Sometimes I write 9 songs in a year and a half. I don't ever worry about it.
Yeah.
So I got plenty of material. And so I recognize that I have a set of songs that are really lend themselves to probably just being my voice and my guitar, which I'm very comfortable with because I do a lot of solo work, over the course of the year. And so I think that's on the horizon. And then I also have accumulated a number of blues songs that I've written. And
Okay.
I'm a big fan of the blues. I always have been. And so I'm going to do a blues album.
Okay.
Hopefully within the year, I'll have those 2 albums out. And then right behind that, I'm planning to do another, roots rock Americana album.
Okay.
And then live performances and stuff. I'm lining up I hope some different and more interesting shows that are all sort of still in development. Kind of retooling with my band right now because after about 10 years or so, I got some personnel changes that have to happen just because
I understand
my
that.
drummer, what's that?
I say I understand that can happen within a
Yeah. My drummer, when his wife retired, moved down to South Carolina. My bass player in the interim got involved in a couple things that have really taken off for him, and so he's not available as much. So I'm kind of figuring out, like, look, are you guys still in? Or are you out? Are no hard feelings with me. It's just things happen, things move on.
Yeah.
And trying to get things a little more in order. I realize and these are some of the business things though, right? Like going back to that previous question. Like, I think part of what I want to do in the coming months is get my musical house in order a little bit. My website's gotten a little out of control. My mailing list has gotten a little unwieldy. My social media, utilizing them to the best. The bands in town, having not known, they made some changes and left me kind of outside, locked outside. So that kind of stuff, but that's an important part because if you're not conducting or tending to the business side of your music,
things start to drop off.
Yeah, you're putting yourself in a bad spot, and so, but yeah, so I'm always, like I said, I'm always optimistic, and I saw somebody this morning says, "Oh, I'm so sorry I didn't get the show." I said, "Well, you're in luck. I'm doing one Friday night." He goes, "Oh, I'm going to be in Boston." I was like, "No worries, man." I said, "My attitude is there's always going to be another one. So, I'll keep putting them out there. You show up when you can, I don't begrudge anybody for not showing up. I just, hopefully there's always going to be, as long as the good Lord willing, the creek don't rise, I'm going to be here to do a few more shows,
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'm looking forward to what's in the immediate and long-term future, musically, and I'm putting my toe back in acting too. So who knows what that might lead to? I don't know where that's going to bring me.
Okay.
But, yeah.
All right, Artie. Well, I appreciate your time on this, and I hope everyone's learned something out of this interview. And
cool.
Thanks for taking the time to talk with us today.
Well, I am happy, as I say, John, to give you time, and I really appreciate your long-term commitment to doing this. We've known each other, I don't know, it's got to be 10 years or more
Yeah,
at this point.
it's 10
And
years.
yeah, you know, you've been unwavering in your passion and your desire and your interest to help artists, and I have a lot of respect for that. So I'm always happy to help out in any way I can.
Appreciate it. Thanks very much. And thanks everyone for watching.
All righty.
Till next
Thanks,
time,
everybody.
Connecting Through Music.